check, mic check. So what is going on, everybody? Fernando Silva here with another video, and welcome to my MacBook Air, iPad Pro productivity desk setup that I've been working on for about a year now, and I think it's finally complete, minus the cable management. Don't judge me on the cable management. I'm probably not going to show too much of it, because with the new goodies that we received recently, the cable management is kind of all over the place, and we are picking up this setup in about 3 weeks and moving it to a new location, and that's when the cable management is going to be pristine. But I do want to thank Innocn. They sent over a new monitor that we're going to talk about in a little bit, so shout out to them for sponsoring a portion of this video, because I'm really excited with what they sent over, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. But without further ado, I'm going to show you guys the ins and outs of how I use my desk setup, how I use it with a Mac, how I use it with the iPad Pro, how I use them together, and then what docks, monitors, desk, everything that I have on here. We're going to go through it and leave it down in the description below if you guys want to check them out. But without further ado, here's my desk setup. So let's jump right in with the first product. We're going to have to start with Innocn, and I think that's how you actually pronounce the company. It's I-N-N-O-C-N, a vague way of spelling maybe innocent, right? So I'm going to call them Innocn, but they sent over their 27-inch 4K UHD monitor, and it's absolutely amazing. And one of the biggest standout things about this monitor is the price to performance ratio. So leave some guesses down below what you think a 4K UHD 27-inch monitor, bezel-less design, it has USB-C, HDMI, DisplayPort, every single I/O that you could imagine on a monitor. It does not have any built-in speakers, so that's one thing that it does not have, but everything else that you would want from a monitor is built into this thing. So take a guess down below how much it is, and then I'll let you guys know towards the end exactly how much it is. So a few things to note about this monitor. From a brightness standpoint, it gets as bright as you would need for an indoor monitor. Like, I have this window behind me, and normally it does have a little bit of glare, especially on some shiny and glossy finishes, but on this, the 400 nits of brightness is more than enough to kind of balance that out, especially during the daytime if you guys like that natural sunlight to come in, and you're in a setup like mine where the window is actually behind you and not in front of you. So 400 nits of brightness, we love to see that. It's got a nice 1000:1 color contrast ratio, so it does give you some nice blacks. It gives you very bright reds and blues and pinks and purples, because from my understanding, this monitor is actually sold as a artistic tool because of color accuracy and that contrast ratio, which I'm seeing firsthand with these wallpapers. If you guys want to check them out, they're by Knupsi. Knupsi makes some awesome wallpapers. Definitely check them out, because this wallpaper, this new one, is absolutely amazing, especially for these monitors. And then in terms of the actual display tech, you're dealing with an LCD panel, but still, it still gets very dark when it needs to, and also very bright when it needs to be as well. And you're dealing with a 3840 by 2160, so that is that 4K resolution that we've been wanting. And if you go out on the market today and you need an external monitor for your iPad, for your MacBook Air, your M1 MacBook Air, it's very hard to find one that fits kind of everything that you would want, right? You want very slim bezels, which this has, check. You want 4K, check. You want to be able to power it with just one cable going from your MacBook Air right into the monitor, check. And then it also has a bunch of different other I/O, like I mentioned earlier. It's got two USB-A 3.0 ports, it's got one DisplayPort, two HDMI ports, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and then an old school USB-B, which I don't really know what it's for, but it is there, and it does bring the corresponding cables in the packaging if you do want to do something with that. Another thing to take note of on this Innocn 27-inch monitor is the stand. So the stand is usually overlooked when you're buying monitors because you don't really interact with it. You kind of just put your monitor down wherever it is. Having a versatile mounting system or versatile stand is so clutch. So with this one, you have the ability to not only move it up and down, so you can place it down, and you do have the ability to move it up and down a couple inches. You also have the ability to swing it side to side. So if you want a certain angle, if you want two monitors together kind of facing you a little bit more and a little bit more angular, you can do that. And it rotates a full 90 degrees. So if you want a vertical set monitor, by all means, this can do it all with the built-in stand that comes with it. You're not paying $1,000 for an XDR stand from Apple to get all that functionality, which is amazing. So in my opinion, don't overlook the stand when looking for monitors, and this one is no slouch. It has every single, feature you would want from a monitor stand built in from the box from the company. But that is the Innocn monitor, and it does retail for I think $480 from Amazon. I'm going to link it down in the description below if you guys do want to check it out. But for 480 bucks and you get all this functionality out of it, I think it's a no-brainer. Especially if you want a super color accurate display, you want to go above that 1080p and go to 4K, be able to have that. Have all those inputs like USB-C, like HDMI, DisplayPort, so have the ability to connect your MacBook Air, but then also maybe connect an Xbox or a PlayStation and change the source on the monitor and to be able to play your game and then switch back to your MacBook Air. those are all things that you can do with this monitor. So like I mentioned, in a perfect world, if you have a MacBook Air, an M1 MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, all you need to do is plug power into the actual monitor itself and then the USB-C cable, which is included, to go from the monitor to the MacBook Air, and then you're charging your MacBook Air up to 65 watts and you're sending audio and video to the actual monitor itself. But in my situation, it's a little bit different. So the M1 MacBook Pro and the M1 MacBook Air natively only support one external display. Why Apple did that, I don't really know. I don't know why Apple did that. The M1 Mac Mini does support 2 displays natively because it doesn't have a built-in display like a laptop, but the M1 MacBook Air and the M1 MacBook Pro do not natively support dual display. So what I wanted to do was actually set up 2 displays, and in order to do that, you need a Displaylink ready USB-C dock. And basically what Displaylink is, it's a software, it's a driver that you install onto your MacBook Air, your M1 MacBook Pro, and then it bypasses that native compatibility and it moves it so it allows you to actually use 2 displays like you would in any other situation. You know, I don't know why Apple likes to restrict us when they don't need to, but Displaylink allows you to do that. Now, some of those Displaylink adapters and USB-C hubs are a little bit expensive. So the one that I'm using, I had to go out and purchase this one. So this one is by Dell. It's one of the highest rated ones. It's Dell, the D6000. I'll leave it linked down in the description below. It's a little under $300, but it does allow me to bypass that situation where the M1 MacBook Air cannot support 2 displays at the same time. And then that would be a good segue to the second monitor that I have. So the second monitor I have is a 32-inch BenQ monitor, which I absolutely love in its own right. You know, it's a little bit of a taller aspect ratio because the reason I got it that way is because I want to use it a lot more with my iPad Pro. And the iPad Pro aspect ratio is a little taller than MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros. Being able to have that aspect ratio be a little bit more one-to-one, even though it's not fully one-to-one, does help out when using the iPad Pro, and that's why I like the height of this BenQ monitor. And this is an HDRI monitor, it's 4K as well, but again, with this monitor, it's costing you $800, so it's not cheap. The Innocn monitor is about $300 cheaper, and from a function standpoint and a visibility standpoint, they're very, very close in what you're getting out of them. So the brightness is very similar, the contrast ratios are very similar, like you can't really see if one is better than the other. So for $300 less, the Innocn one, I think, is a steal. Because again, the BenQ monitor does come with a stand, obviously, but you can't move it up and down, you can't rotate it, you can't swivel it, you can't do anything with that stand. One thing the BenQ monitor does have is it does have a built-in speaker, versus the Innocn one does not. So if you have like a HomePod or maybe a speaker at home that you like to use, all you have to do is plug it into the headphone jack or Bluetooth your HomePod and make that your speaker, and you'll be good to go with that Innocn monitor playing music or watching videos. So those are my 2 monitors, and like I said, they're both plugged in to the back of my Dell D6000. One is with an HDMI cable, the other one's with a display port, and then that Dell plugs directly into either my iPad Pro if I'm using it that way, or my MacBook Air. And that is how I get all of my stuff onto my 2 monitors. So the way I have it currently set up, let's keep going with the accessories on the desk. So the monitors themselves are sitting on a Grove-made desk stand, which is freaking pristine. Like Grove-made, yes, they're a little bit expensive, but the type of products that they make are gonna last you forever as long as you take care of them. And even if you're a little bit rough with them, being rough with them just kind of adds to the age. It's almost like leather because it's all made out of wood. So Grove-made has this stand, and then underneath the stand there's 2 shelving units. So on the first shelf, that's where I house the MacBook Air. I leave it closed in clamshell mode with, again, 1 cable that goes from the MacBook Air to that Dell hub, and then that hub goes to the monitors and to power and to everything that I need. And then under that shelf there's a little drawer, again by Grove-made. This whole setup is by Grove-made, to put all your little trinkets, chargers, pens, things like that. And then on the desk itself, I like to have my Orbit Key XL mat. So I've mentioned this mat before, and I absolutely love it. Like, I don't know who thinks of these things in terms of putting function into a mat itself, like a desk mat. I've always thought to be, hey, let me just throw a desk mat on there to get a little contrast in the desk, because my desk is white and I like to have a black desk mat at all times. So that's normally what a desk mat would do, right? But with this desk mat, it has a little bit of function to it, which is crazy. So the first thing that it has is it has a foldable little flap here. So the bottom is actually all felt, and then there's a top layer which is made out of leather. So in between the felt and the leather, there's a little sliver here that you can put documents in, like single sheets of paper, Post-its, things like that, to just hide away and tuck away without taking up any space. And then on the top, there's a little rail that's made of all magnets, and I use it too. So I do have a little magnetic cable organizer which you put down to kind of thread your cables through. So that's what I do with my USB-C cable when I'm charging my iPad Pro. But then also what I like to do there is actually put my Apple Pencil on there, because I know if I'm not using my Apple Pencil and I don't want to have it on the iPad, I know it's not going anywhere because magnetically it's staying on there. It's not built to do that, but hey, I'm going to take that, and that's how I use that little strip right there. But then overall, the XL mat is perfect for my size desk. Keep in mind that the XL one was a little bit bigger than I anticipated, so if you have a smaller desk, definitely go with just the regular size one. The XL one was going to take up pretty much your entire desk unless you have a big desk. So this is the XL mat. And then on top of the mat itself, I have a few things. So I have my keyboard of choice, which is the Satechi X1 Slim. I love what Satechi does with their products. I've been using this keyboard for over a year now. And before that, I had their other keyboard, which had the number pad, but I wanted to keep it a little bit smaller. I don't use a number pad ever. So keeping a nice compact keyboard is always clutch. And then underneath that, there is a wrist rest, again, by Grovemade. And I used to make fun of people with wrist rest because I thought, how can that possibly help? Like, why even spend $5 on like an Amazon wrist rest to rest your, your palms of your hands while you're typing? And it is night and day, everybody. If you're one of those people that didn't really believe that wrist rest did anything, it does help a lot in terms of like angling your hands at the correct ergonomics to make sure like your hands don't get cramped up and tired. Because I'm at this desk like 12 to 14 hours a day, typing away at all times. So getting a little wrist rest does help. You don't have to go and get the Grovemade one because again, Grovemade is a little expensive, but I'll leave some link down below because you can get some on Amazon for like 12 bucks that are still pretty good quality and they'll get the job done. But again, the one that I have is by Grovemade and it is pretty pristine, everybody. And then my mouse of choice, if you guys have been with me on this channel, you know that I've had the same exact mouse for I think 2 years now, and it's an MX Anywhere S2. It is the little brother to the MX Master 3 or whatever it's called at this point. Now they are on the Anywhere S3, and the only difference between the old one and the new one is that the old one still charges via micro USB, so I do deal with that. But again, I only charge it like once every 3 to 6 months, and I just charge it overnight once, and then I never have to worry about it again. So that's always good to know. But the new one does charge via USB-C if you do want to get the new one, and I think there's only like a $20 difference. But in my opinion, this Logitech MX Anywhere S2 is the cheapest quality mouse that you can buy, because I think they start at like $60 or $80, because there's a little bit of heft to it, it feels comfortable in the hand, and I've never really needed the MX Master S3, like I don't want to spend $100 on a mouse. So this is that perfect sweet spot in terms of price to performance ratio for the mouse itself. And then in terms of other peripherals, I do have a HomePod Mini kind of sitting in the corner of the desk that I'd use for audio or to listen to music and things like that. Even though I do have built-in speakers in the BenQ monitor, I tend to always gravitate towards a HomePod because it's just like a fuller sound, it's got more bass, it feels like it's all around you. Versus the BenQ monitor, it does beat like your built-in MacBook Air speakers, but not by much in my opinion. So I use a HomePod 99% of the time whenever I'm using music out loud, although I normally have my AirPods in. Which is a perfect segue to, on the right-hand side of my desk, I have a Satechi 2-in-1 charger. So here's where I charge my iPhone with MagSafe. So right now I have the iPhone 13 mini on here, and then underneath there's a little wireless charging pad to actually charge your AirPods, whether they are the AirPods Pro, AirPods 3, or AirPods 2. As long as it has a wireless charging case, you can throw it on there and get them charged. And the AirPods Pro are usually my main choice in terms of audio source when it comes to me just sitting at my desk. And then I have a little trinket, I have a little snow globe, or I guess you can call it a Mars globe, which I really like. It's got like little sparkly orange sand in here, and you're on Mars, so I like to have that little trinket to remind me, hey, we're going to Mars one day. So Elon, I'm down to go if you ever actually open up tickets to send people over there. Just letting you know. Comment down below if you would actually go to Mars, if you had the opportunity to. Very curious. And then lastly, you guys know what desk I use. I use an autonomous desk that I've had for at least a year and a half, maybe even more. I want to say 2 years now at this point, because this is the third place that it's been at. So this autonomous desk has been with me for a long time. It's a very classic smart desk, standing desk. So it's got your 4 memory points. So if you want to save up to 4 different heights, you can do that. So if you're not the only one using this, if maybe your wife or your partner uses it as well, you can save a standing and sitting for yourself and a standing and sitting for them as well. So that's always good to have. So you have the 4 memory points. You have the up and down arrows on the side here by Autonomous. It goes as low as 29.5 inches and then as high as I believe 47 inches. So even if you're like 7 feet tall, this is gonna go high enough. And then I got the white oak countertop. I absolutely love the white oak, so kudos to Autonomous for picking an awesome tabletop. And then the legs themselves are made out of metal and they're very, very quiet. They move up and down relatively quickly and it's beautiful to see. So that is my desk setup. This chair that I'm sitting on is nothing special. I think it's from Office Depot from like years ago. It is what it is. It's just a very classic office desk. I literally don't even know the brand, but it is very comfortable. And I know IKEA makes some good ones, and obviously Herman Miller, but if you want to go with a good quality one, IKEA does have some great choices at that $200 price range, which will get the job done and will last you for a couple years. So that is my recommendation when it comes to a chair. And then one more thing that I do in order to really optimize my workflow with this setup is I actually use my iPhone as a webcam. Because you're probably thinking, hey Fernando, you're in clamshell mode, that probably means you can't use the webcam that's built into the laptop, and you don't see a webcam here, which I don't have one. I do not have a webcam. So what I was able to do is download the EPO or EPOCam application. It is free to use. There's a little bit of watermarks in the free version, which is totally fine for me. But I basically just use my iPhone 13 mini, I put it on this little MOF stand that I have, put it right in the center of me, and then I'm able to use my selfie camera from my iPhone as my webcam. So whenever I have any work meetings during the day, that is my camera that I use for webcams while I keep everything in clamshell mode and get my work done. But just wanted to share that because I did that relatively recently and I thought that was very cool. And that's pretty much everything that I have on my desk. And then the last thing I want to talk about is actually how I use everything. So there's a couple of ways that I use my setup because I am an iPad Pro first user. So I use the iPad Pro for 90 to 95% of my tasks. And you're probably thinking to yourself, Fernando, why do you need 2 monitors if you're an iPad Pro user? So there's actually 2 use cases that I have for it. So the first one is just plugging it directly into my iPad Pro and then actually using Shift Screen to be able to use both monitors at the same time, and it does work. But then version number 2 is when I do need Mac OS. What I actually use is I use the iPad to control my Mac OS. So as you guys know, I am in clamshell mode with the MacBook Air. So what I'll do is I actually use the iPad Pro sidecar feature, but then use the iPad Pro in the middle, because the iPad Pro, while you're using it in sidecar, you can still use the Magic Keyboard on the iPad Pro in order to interact with macOS. Now you can't use the trackpad, so you do need an external mouse to control the actual pointer on macOS, but you can still use the keyboard like a regular keyboard and it recognizes everything that you would do on the Magic Keyboard. So I kind of use the iPad Pro front and center and then everything else on the displays. So I use the iPad Pro running macOS through Sidecar to control pretty much this entire hub or office space or whatever you want to call it at this point. So those are my 2 main functions of how I use macOS with iPadOS in conjunction. And now I'm just kind of waiting for universal control, so that way I can still use my iPad Pro as kind of like the main hub to control everything, but I don't have to leave iPadOS, which I think is going to be very, very clutch when working in my workflow, which is very, very heavily used on iPadOS 15 and higher. But that is pretty much going to do for this video, everybody. So big shout out to Innocn. Like, I highly recommend this monitor. I've had it for 2 weeks now. I got to play with it. I highly, highly recommend it. If you don't have a monitor and you want to make a little bit of an investment, again, under $500 for what you're getting with this Innocn monitor is absolutely amazing. Like, there's really not much out there that has everything that you would need, especially from an aesthetic standpoint. Like, once you start getting really expensive, you got to deal with RGB lighting and like gaming monitors and all this stuff, and I don't want that. So again, the Innocn monitor is one of the best price to performance ratio monitors out there. Highly recommend it. I'm going to link it down in the description below. Shout out to them for sending it over and sponsoring a portion of the video. Again, could not be happier. But that's going to do it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. You guys are amazing. Leave a little dolphins emoji if you guys made it to the end, because I'm always curious to see how many people make it to the end of this video. But that's going to do it, everybody. So until next time, peace. I'm out of here.